Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ryan Lasner himself, a.k.a. Aaron Kasker.
What's up?
Today, we're in the Aaron Kasker's household, which we've turned unofficially to the Lasner Sport headquarters. We're going to be discussing a lot of different topics that are pertinent to your daily lifestyle. We know you love sports. That's the reason you subscribe, and we definitely appreciate you.
So what are we going to get into today? We're going to talk about the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about my Seahawks, talk a little bit of the Broncos. Maybe we'll hit on a little bit of NBA. Maybe talk a little A-Rod. Where would you like to start first?
Well, considering the Super Bowl is a week and a half away, and on everyone's mind is the Richard Sherman, it's the Seahawks, it's the Broncos, it's Papa John's. We're talking about everything Super Bowl related right now, and the media is like a fire. It's fueling over it. There's different things that that hit my mind when I think of the Broncos and Seahawks in the Super Bowl. One being Peyton Manning's legacy, another being the Legion of Boom. How do you call it?
The LOB, the Legion of Boom.
The Legion of Boom. The number one ranked defense versus the number one ranked offense. You couldn't really ask for a better Super Bowl right now. And Aaron's done a lot of research for us.
Just a tiny bit. I'm just scratching the surface.
And he knows what he's talking about. He is actually picking the Broncos. You'd be surprised.
Nah. I don't want to reveal my pick just yet, although the jersey might be a bit of a tease. But we'll break down the game. I'm sure that I will have multiple posts preceding the game. Does what happens a week from this Sunday affect Peyton Manning's legacy? Like the fact that he beat the Patriots,
right.
He gets to his third Super Bowl. He's now the second quarterback of all time to take two different teams to a Super Bowl. If he wins the Super Bowl, does he climb, to another level? Like if you have Peyton Manning behind Tom Brady, which I personally do, and I know we've had plenty of back and forth on the blog about this, and a lot of the great points can be made for both. It's a generation later, but it's the Marino Montana argument all over again.
Fair.
People can argue for Manning and people can argue for Brady, and nobody's really right. It's one of the beautiful things about sports.
Sure.
But if you've got Manning behind Brady, and Manning wins and plays well in this Super Bowl, does that change your mind?
I would think so. As you mentioned, he would be taking two different teams to Super Bowl. He would be the first ever to win two Super Bowls on two different teams, which is remarkable. At his age, again, 37 years old, it's unfathomable. You would think you're on the latter end of your career.
Well, I see where you're getting, and I completely agree that one of the most overrated arguments in any sport, but especially in football, where it is such a team sport and one player has really such little control over so many of the aspects of the game, it is absolutely ridiculous to completely tie a player's legacy to their championships. I mean, there is nobody in their right mind that would ever take, Jeff Hostetler, or Trent Dilfer, or Brad Johnson over Dan Marino.
Of course.
By the same token, even in a more recent example, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger's been to 3 Super Bowls and has won 2.
Right.
So you're telling me that if Peyton Manning had lost last week to the Patriots, and Manning never gets to a third Super Bowl and only has 1 win, that Ben Roethlisberger is a better quarterback, or that Eli is a better quarterback than his brother?
But what we're noticing of all the teams that he is on, he's the focal point. It is always a Peyton Manning-led team. And in an instance where Ben Roethlisberger is involved, he comes up clutch, but he doesn't walk around with the hard-worthy awards when it finishes. He wasn't the Super Bowl MVP. You gave it to Santonio Holmes. A lot of things is Peyton Manning didn't play great against the Bears when he won his first Super Bowl, but he still got the MVP because he's a leader of the offense, he's a leader of the team, and it's ran by him. If he fails, the team fails. They led the league in scoring because of him. Yes, the running game did open up, but if you have Demaryius Thomas with 14 touchdowns, you have Julius Thomas, who also broke out. He had 13 touchdowns. It's his first real season. He had 1 reception last year. The fact that you can make players great the way that he has, Dallas Clark in the past, Tammy's been clutch. The way that he can just create jobs for people is notable itself, and it has to be mentioned.
But you could say the same thing for Brady. I mean, Brady won three Super Bowls with his top receivers being Deion Branch, Troy Brown, David Givens, David Patton.
Right.
I mean, granted, Brady put up astronomical numbers when he had Wes Welker and Randy Moss, and he got to 2 Super Bowls with those guys.
Right.
But he won 3 Super Bowls without those guys. Those guys didn't even win.
True. The Spygate, of course, comes into the equation. I hate to use outside information, especially if it's not legitimate. But that's what people said, and they did lose draft picks over it. So it happened. It's adequate. We can make that part of the discussion. Peyton Manning, as to what we know, has never cheated. Not saying Tom Brady is a cheater, but that does stain his legacy a bit. And what about Tom Brady against the Raiders? With the handout and
rule.
The tuck rule. There's things. Tom Brady is extremely marketable. Peyton Manning has become as marketable, and
I don't think Peyton Manning's ever seen a commercial offer that he doesn't like.
I agree.
Well, all right. Let's start with the basics. Ultimately, this game is going to be billed as the number 1 offense from Denver versus the number 1 defense in Seattle.
Right.
A great matchup. But what I find is when you delve even deeper into it, what makes this matchup even better is that you got 2 teams that do one thing really well offensively. You got Denver, loves to pass the ball, one of the best passing offenses in the league. We already talked about how Peyton Manning, shattered the record for touchdowns in a single season with 55.
Right.
And then you've got Seattle, who wants to pound the ball with Marshawn Lynch. They want Marshawn Lynch to go beast mode. They want to give him 30 carries. If they throw the ball, 20 times in the game, they're feeling great about it.
Right.
Now, defensively, you've got 2 teams that actually stop what the other team does well.
Right.
So you've got Denver, who has had one of the best rush defenses in the league on a yards per carry basis, and actually over the last 2 weeks in the postseason has completely shut down San Diego and New England. Granted, not 2 juggernauts of rushing offense, but needless to say, the Broncos did shut down what running game they had. And then you've got Seattle, of course, the Legion of Boom with my boy Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas and company. The best pass defense, bar none, in the league. So what you've got is you're going to have which team can impose its will on the other. Can Denver throw the ball against that great secondary? Not to mention Seattle's great defensive line, which goes about 6 to 7 deep with quality pass rushers. And can Seattle run the ball with Marshawn Lynch against what is a very good front 4, at least when it comes to stopping the run, for Denver? Now, whichever team can impose their will, if one team does and the other team doesn't, well, then the game's pretty much decided there. What I think is more likely to happen is that neither team will really be able to impose their will, and that both teams are going to need to go to plan B. Will they be able to keep Seattle's defense honest and maybe open things up for the passing game by running the ball? And for Seattle, can Russell Wilson move the chains if Seattle can't get a great rushing performance out of Marshawn Lynch? Personally, I think it's setting up to be a defensive struggle because the 2 teams, the defenses match up so well with the offenses. And then if you factor in the weather, I mean, I don't think it matters so much how cold it is. Granted, if it gets down to below 20 degrees, that can make it a little difficult to hold on to the ball, to catch the ball. But I think what really matters is the wind. If it is a cold, nasty, windy day, it's going to be very difficult to throw the ball. And going up against Seattle's secondary as is and their pass rush, if it's cold and windy, Denver's in a whole heap of trouble.
Well, thank you for introducing the next version of what I like to say. On top of that, all right, like as you said, Marshawn Lynch, he's going to be given 30 carries. I don't think that's going to work out. I think, if he will get 30 carries if they're up, but you have to keep the highest scored team in check. And Peyton Manning, he's proven it time and time again. They could score at will. 13 times this year, they had over 30 points a game. How many times did Seattle have over 30 points? 5. So scoring is a premium in this league. That's how you defend. I mean, obviously the defenses are what rule versus the offense.
I don't know that Peyton Manning has played any defense close to Seattle.
We did look at the defenses that Manning played. The Giants were probably the best, which is a joke. And they lose a couple of games, but they can score, plain and simple. And in the playoffs, not so much. They're averaging 25 points in the 2 games versus the 23 points that the Seattle's is averaging in their 2 games. So it's very close, and both teams can score, but who can score the most? And realistically, who has the more potent offense? I mean, you have Demaryius Thomas, like I mentioned. You have Julius Thomas. You have Wes Welker. You have Eric Decker. And then you have Noshawn Moreno, who's a 1,200-yard rusher. Monte Ball, who can score in the red zone. You have everybody there. Now, if you look on the other side with Seattle, yes, you have Marshawn Lynch, but then you're throwing to Doug Baldwin, and yes, Russell Wilson's a creative guy. He can keep the play lasting a lot longer than possible.
Tate's pretty good.
Golden Tate is nice, yes, 8 touchdowns or so. But there's no real playmakers on that team besides a Marshawn Lynch on that offense. So you're relying too heavily on one player. He can be stopped. And if you look at his total yards this year, I mean, he barely broke 1,000. Yes, he scored 13 touchdowns and led the NFL or so, but touchdowns, yeah, that's what happens when you get into the red zone. Can they get to the red zone? And if they do, is Russell Wilson going to fall under pressure? Considering it is his second year, and the fact that he's playing Peyton Manning, who has won a Super Bowl, he's as cool as you can be.
Yeah. What I would say is, if this game turns into a shootout, then Seattle's in trouble, because Seattle is not built to score more than 24, maybe 28 points in a game. I mean, if to me, this game is going to be a race to 20.
Covered enough on that topic, but
do we want to go as far as to do a pick, or we want to save that for the blog?
I think
give us like another week of research. Let us really digest the whole matchup, and then we'll put it on the blog. But I think you get the idea that
I'll break it
he's
down.
leaning towards.
I'll
the
tell you
team
why I
in
like the
Mile High
Broncos
State.
in a few seconds. The Broncos are going to win because the 49ers had 3 turnovers and were still in striking distance at the very end. They could have won that game with 3 turnovers. Okay? If Peyton Manning doesn't turn over the ball, which he does maybe once or twice a game, the only time they do have turnovers are through the running backs. Turnovers are gonna change the aspect of the game. Play a clean game, don't get any turnovers, and you got the game, Denver.
Well, there's no doubt that if there's turnovers, turnovers always in every single game go a long way towards deciding who wins.
And special teams.
But what I would say is, if this becomes a game where Denver is behind and has to throw, that's where the turnovers come. I mean, this game against San Francisco last week, San Francisco turned the ball over, twice late in the game,
right,
because they were behind and they needed to throw.
Who do you trust
and
better?
when you
Peyton
got to
Manning
throw
or
into the
Colin
Legion
Kaepernick?
of Boom,
Right.
when you got to throw into the Legion of Boom,
no.
you're